We have full coverage at the DNC in Chicago, including NBC's Gabe Gutierrez, MSNBC's Chris Jansing, MSNBC political analyst and Politico correspondent Eugene Daniels, and senior White House correspondent for the Grio, April Ryan. So, Chris, the festivities last night dragged way past midnight. What's the big takeaway, and what's in store for tonight?
Yeah, if there was any question going into the first day of the DNC, it was answered last night. There is extraordinary energy. I talked to a lot of high-level Democrats who have been to 5, 6, 7 different Democratic National Conventions. They say they feel the energy is as strong as Barack Obama's first, which is legendary in the party. A few even said it was stronger, that they have never seen anything quite like this. Kamala Harris, you see there coming out, the place went wild. And when Joe Biden came out, 3.5 minutes standing ovation. And he said, America, I gave my best to you. It kept getting interrupted by chants of, we love Joe. And there you see him in an emotional moment. So this is not the politician. This is the dad and the father. He had to wipe away tears before he gave his, I think, 52-minute speech after Ashley had introduced him. And I think in between, there was the attack dog as well. By my count, there it is wiping away a tear. By my count, he mentioned Donald Trump 27 times. One of the biggest ovations of the night was when he said Donald Trump promised infrastructure every week for 4 years, and he never built a damn thing. And the place went wild. Look, there was also, I think, a very poignant moment at the very end. When he was done, after he was gracious and generous and passing off the torch, you played where he said that Kamala Harris was the best decision he ever made. He also said multiple times that the accomplishments of his administration were her accomplishments as well. But it ended with him walking off stage with his 4-year-old grandchild, Beau, named, of course, for his son, who died of brain cancer. What a beautiful moment that was. And I think an image that will stay with many of the folks here. Not the speech Joe Biden wanted to give, one they wanted to hear and responded to, I think, in an extraordinary way that you don't often see in a setting like this, Jose and Anna.
Gabe, President Biden's speech was part swan song, but parts of it were feisty and future focused. Take a look.
Folks, I've got 5 months left in my presidency. I've got a lot to do. I intend to get it done. It's been the honor of my lifetime to serve as your president. I love the job, but I love my country more. Join me in promising your whole heart to this effort, and where my heart will be. I promise I'll be the best volunteer Harrison Walsh has ever seen.
Gabe, did you get the sense he's not planning to just sail into the sunset?
Well, hi there, Anna. Good morning. Well, the president really doesn't have the luxury of riding off into the sunset. Of course, with the Israel-Hamas war, the war in Ukraine, he really can't do that, even though he's waking up this morning in California, going on vacation for several days. Again, the president doesn't have the luxury of fully going on vacation. But, you know, Jose and Anna, it was really interesting. Last night, I was with the president as he spoke to reporters outside of Air Force One. He walked over to the reporters, seeming to want to take questions here, and it was clear that the night deeply affected him. He talked about how the highlight of the night for him was his daughter's introduction, but he was also asked several questions, for example, about Nancy Pelosi, whether he had spoken to Nancy Pelosi. He said he hadn't, but he made a point to say that the decision to drop out of the race was influenced by no one. And his eyes also lit up when he was asked about the latest in the Israel-Hamas war. He said that a deal was still in play. So clearly, this is a president that, while he was ready to pass the torch yesterday, still has a lot on his mind moving forward into his last 5 months of his presidency.
Eugene, what stood out to you from the president's speech and how it fit into the bigger picture?
Yeah, I mean, this was, like Chris said, not the speech that he wanted to give, but it did sound like a speech that a person would give as a nominee, right? This was something that this president wanted to cement his legacy, right? He made this, as Democrats have been putting it, this sacrifice. He stepped aside. His vice president is the nominee. And so this is him saying to everyone, these are the things that I was able to do in my 4 years. And I talked to a bunch of aides around him and asked them, is this like his farewell speech? Remember, Obama did that. This is something that presidents do. And they said no, that would happen in January. So this really was something that they wanted to say to the biggest crowd he may ever have for the rest of his life as a public figure. And more importantly, that hug that you just saw between him and Vice President Harris was truly the passing of the torch, right? From this day forward, she is the standard bearer for this party. The rest of this convention is going to be about her. One thing I found really interesting is when he talked about, all of my accomplishments are her accomplishments, but he didn't do that for a long time, right? He didn't give Republicans a lot to work with, because what they're trying to say is the things that you don't like, America, Vice President Harris was right there with him. The things that you don't like when it comes to Afghanistan or immigration or the economy. Because he didn't tick through all of those things with Vice President Harris, I talked to some Republicans today. They were a little irritated, I think, that they were not able to have those things for ads, right? And so that's what they've been looking for. And now you have a party that is in this historic moment. And also Hillary Clinton, the first woman to have the nomination of a major political party, also kind of passing the torch. That was exactly what we saw yesterday.
Yeah, the former First Lady, the former Senator, the former Secretary of State making that forceful case for Vice President Harris last night. And she returned to the glass ceiling thread that she's used at multiple key stages in her career. Let's just watch a clip.
Together, we put a lot of cracks in the highest, hardest glass ceiling. And tonight, so close to breaking through once and for all, I want to tell you what I see through all those cracks. I see the freedom to look our children in the eye and say, in America, you can go as far as your hard work and talent will take you, and mean it. And you know what? On the other side of that glass ceiling is Kamala Harris raising her hand and taking the oath of office as our 47th President of the United States.
April, how do you think Vice President Harris feels about the idea of breaking that ceiling? And why do you think it's something that she really hasn't been highlighting in this campaign?
Well, first of all, you have to remember, race and politics and feminism will always follow Kamala Harris, as well as Hillary Clinton, that feminism thing. Remember when Hillary Clinton ran against Donald Trump and she said one of the reasons why she didn't attack him is because women are held at a different standard. So she has to find that neutral ground where everyone can reach out and feel like she's authentic and yet strong. Kamala Harris, again, will have race and politics always find her. And finding that neutral ground, she's watching the mistakes of the past, the successes of the past, so she can move forward in this historic moment. And I'm going to say this, Hillary Clinton was so dynamic. This was one of the best speeches I've ever heard from Hillary Clinton last night. She was in her element. But one of the things that really struck me, she kept talking about the glass ceiling. I'm kind of in the Nancy Pelosi area where she said it's not a glass ceiling, it's a marble ceiling, because glass is easier to break. And it's taken how long for another woman to get here? Let's even go back to 1972 when Shirley Chisholm first ran for president, the first black woman to run for president. And then we had Geraldine Ferraro who came on the stage, and then we had Hillary Clinton. And now look at where we are. The first black woman, Southeast Asian woman to get a Democratic or any kind of major party nomination. She has to walk a different line than those other women who were not of her same race. So it's going to be interesting in how she does this. And it kind of reminds me of how Barack Obama handled being president and how he handled running, because he was a candidate who happened to be black and ran and won. So it looks like she's doing the same thing, but differently. She is a candidate who happens to be black, Southeast Asian, and most importantly, a woman who is running for the highest office in the land.
I agree with you, April. I think it was one of Hillary Clinton's best speeches, and she actually mentioned Chisholm, and she mentioned Geraldine Ferraro, and how she took her daughter to see that moment when Geraldine Ferraro, came up on the national stage. And Chris, I know you were there as well last night. What was the reaction to Hillary Clinton's speech?
It was absolutely electric. I mean, people were jumping out of their chairs. The applause were long and loud. And I think for a lot of people in this audience, it brought them back, right? It brought them back to that day when they realized that Donald Trump had been elected, not Hillary Clinton, reminding them how it felt that morning after, reminding them of their daughters who were teenagers, who they thought were going to see the first woman president, who wouldn't get out of bed because they were in tears. This is when we break through, is the moment that she said to this audience, all of it has been leading up to this. And I talked to a group of women who were brought to tears by hearing what Hillary Clinton had to say. I think we can play you a little bit of that.
I notice you're very emotional tonight. How are you feeling?
I'm extremely excited, but we nominated her to be our president in 2016, so it's also a little bittersweet.
What has it meant to have a Hillary Clinton and a Kamala Harris?
It is, it was huge for me. Like, when I was younger, I wanted to be the first woman president, which was like very silly. But I've idolized these women my whole life.
I've idolized this woman my whole life. You know, it was interesting. I talked very briefly to Jim Clyburn this morning, somebody who was a very savvy politician, and I asked him about the energy. He said it's there, but this is just the start, right? And I think maybe my big takeaway from talking to so many women last night is they aren't saying rote the way I hear from many people at many past conventions, oh, yeah, I'm going to work for the team. They are already working. They have already knocked on doors. They have already made phone calls. They are already gathering other people in their neighborhoods. And they are determined to see that Hillary Clinton's loss is something that Kamala Harris can build on and take it all the way to the White House. That was the real difference for me, I think, not just the energy, but the determination that I heard from so many people in this hall, which you might note is empty. I think they're very tired this morning.
And yet you look as bright and as beautiful and as articulate as ever, Chris. I don't know how you all do it, all of you who are with us this morning. I know you were burning the candle on both ends. Eugene, as we look ahead to tonight, what are your expectations for the speeches from the Obamas?
Yeah. I mean, maybe double yesterday, right? Like, these are two people who are the most popular Democrats in the world, right? And Michelle Obama is often seen as the most influential, most admired woman on the planet, right? Her and Oprah. And so that's exactly what we're going to see. It's going to be interesting how President Obama specifically operates here, because he came out that Friday after the debate and said that, bad debates happen, but then he was quiet, right? He was pretty silent. And we are still waiting to figure out what was happening behind the scenes when he was seeing how badly and how many Democrats were calling for his former vice president to step aside. So how he thanks Joe Biden and then pivots into getting everyone excited and ready for Vice President Harris. And the same thing for Michelle Obama, right? Vice President Harris is right in the middle of them, being a black woman and being the first black woman to possibly be president of the United States. So she has to kind of toddle this line that both of them have had to do, and I think a lot of Democrats would say successfully.
Yeah, I mean, one of the questions a lot of people ask is what role or how much of a role did the former president have in suggesting to President Biden that he step aside? But, April, what role do you see the Obamas playing going forward in the campaign?
Well, first of all, they are going to give unanimous support behind Kamala Harris because when all of this went down, Barack Obama was receiving calls from so many people after that debate that President Biden did not make a stellar performance in. But Barack Obama received calls, fielded the calls, and, you know, there has been a little bit of a concern. People have wondered, you know, why, you know, was he fielding calls? But the way we understand President Obama and people like Nancy Pelosi were concerned about the democracy and saving the democracy. And that's one of the reasons why Joe Biden last night was the hero of the evening, because he says, I am stepping aside to save the republic, something that Benjamin Franklin said in the Constitution, the Constitution Convention, Continental Convention, for the Declaration of Independence. So at the end of the day, Barack Obama, one of the greatest orators of our time, along with Bill Clinton and his wife, will stand and give his support to Kamala Harris, give his support to keeping the democracy straight. This is about saving the democracy, not about personal feelings, but also support for this Democratic nominee who they hope to win the Oval Office.
April Ryan, Chris Jansen, Gabe Gutierrez, Eugene Daniels, thank you all.